Enjoy. Well, good afternoon and welcome to a brand new Legal Line. I'm Nate Fluharty, and here on Legal Line we like to focus on getting answers to some legal questions that you may have. So over the course of the next half hour, we're going to be opening up our phone lines for you to give us a call. That number is 318-219-4569, and I'll be reminding you over the course of the next half hour. We'll also be putting that up at the bottom of your screen to keep you informed on that number to call. But there's some things you want to keep in mind. Make sure you turn down your TV. You're in a quiet spot. We don't want to hear ourselves in the background, so we want to be able to clearly answer your question. And we do want to say this is an informational purposes only kind of show. It does not constitute legal advice, but you do want to reach out to any attorney before getting any specific legal advice or taking that. So let's get right to it. We are joined once again by our good friends from Marshall Rice and William Kendig of Rice and Kendig Personal Injury Attorneys here in Shreveport. Great to see you, fellas.
Good to see you. It's been a few weeks since I've been here.
It has. Welcome back, William.
Well, thank you.
Yes, Marshall's been holding down the fort, giving us some great legal answers too to some of our questions. So, ready to have you back.
Well, there's no one better than Marshall to give you advice. I'm going to see if I can't support him today.
Okay.
See what we can do.
Well, you guys are very good at what you do and helping some clients here in the area in Shreveport, of course. And well, first things first, what are we talking about today, guys?
So we're going to be talking about, a lot of times people call us up with various things. So we're going to talk about what makes a good case, or what are the three factors that you have to have in order to have a good case. The first one, of course, is going to be liability. And we talked about that a few weeks ago, that somebody else has to be at fault. There's that misconception that if you slip on somebody's property, that they automatically are responsible for any injuries you have. But we've got to actually show that they were negligent. Louisiana has a negligence-based system. We've got to show that they did something that they should not have done, or failed to do something that they should have done that brought about injury to you. And that, of course, is the second element.
That's right. You gotta have damages. You have to be hurt. If you have an incident but you're not hurt, then there's no case.
Is it always hurt? Sorry to cut you off there, but like personal property damage or things like that, is it always injury?
Yeah, so sometimes it can be property damage. In the
Right.
case of a motor vehicle wreck, if your car's damaged, that's also considered a damage.
Okay.
And you can also have, emotional damages, other damages. We handle personal injury cases, so we represent people who've been physically injured as a result of somebody else's negligence. So in some states, they have what is called punitive damages. And punitive damages, that's basically a way the courts make sure that people do not engage in prohibited behavior or engage in behavior that is encouraged. Louisiana doesn't have punitive damages. We're not going to punish the wrongdoer. We have compensatory damages. So what that means is, if you are not injured, then you're not going to make a recovery, even if the other person is at fault. So just because a person is at fault doesn't mean you have a case. You've got to have that second element, which is that you've got to have suffered damages. And then that brings us to the last element of damage, and that is the person either has to have the wherewithal to pay for your damages to compensate you, or they have to have insurance. So you need all three in order to have a successful personal injury case.
And I'm really glad you pointed that out, because if one of those doesn't meet the requirements, if there is just a small portion of that is out of sync, it can throw out the entire case, correct?
It can. Now, Louisiana has what we call pure comparative fault. So there are cases where perhaps the court or the jury finds that you are 25% at fault, but the other person is 75%. You would recover your damages, but your damages would be reduced by that in proportion to that amount that you are also contributorily or also negligent.
Okay, very interesting. How does that work? Marshall, if you could break that down for us. So if I read that right from what William was saying, that there can be more than one party responsible.
Yeah, so
how do you go about delegating that?
Yeah, so in some instances there can be multiple parties who have fault. And so what you do is you put on evidence of what each person did in the wreck, and then the judge or jury, like Bill was saying, can allocate a percentage of fault to each party, and then they just split up the total number that's awarded by the judge or jury. based on the percentage of fault. I think that, overall though, what we're trying to say here is if you have a personal injury case, in order to be viable, there has to be liability, damages, most likely insurance or some other way for someone to pay you for the harm that they caused.
So even if someone, they're acting crazy, they're found responsible, if they got no way to pay you back, kind of up the creek a little bit.
Well, and if you go, and I'm not going to say, there have been times where we've had to pursue someone because of low insurance. That's the other thing, coverage, the coverage limit, how much coverage is there? And in my experience has been, there's bankruptcy, there's these type of that make it prohibitive to pursue somebody. So
yeah, that's actually one thing that you and I touched on the last time, is the fact the huge number of people in Louisiana, if we're looking at driving, the huge number of drivers that do not have car insurance.
That's correct.
Can we dive back into that too, just to kind of touch on that?
Another element. It's they either do not have insurance or they don't have enough insurance. Right now,
underinsured. Okay.
Right now, it's not uncommon for us to receive emergency medical bills of over $15,000. And that's somebody who goes in and has had a fairly significant wreck, but isn't even going to need surgery or anything else, but just between the MRI, all the testing and the charges that they give, and that exhausts an entire policy. The individual there's nothing left for lost wages or anything else. And so we see that frequently. And so of course, the way to protect yourself is with uninsured motorist coverage. It's really the only way you can protect yourself. So having liability insurance, we get people all the time who tell me, I've got full coverage. Well, I don't even know what full coverage means, but I do know that if you insure your car for comp and collision, you ought to insure yourself and your family for underinsured motorist situations. And that means that if the other person does not have enough insurance or doesn't have any insurance, then your insurance comes in and pays. Now, the beauty of uninsured motorist coverage is when you make a claim against your own carrier, people are always fearful, how is that going to affect my rates?
Sure.
They can only increase your rates if there's a general rate increase that has nothing to do with fault, or if you are at fault, but not solely because of a UM claim. And different rules apply to UM that actually require the insurance company to treat you in good faith and deal more fairly with you. So I have UM insurance, uninsured motorist coverage, because I can't count on the fact that somebody who might hit me or my family is going to have it. We could have a whole topic on the different things that UM coverage protects you for, and we'll save that for another day, but it's just a great idea.
Absolutely. No, it absolutely is. And looking at the numbers and the statistics and things like that.
Right.
When you look at the numbers, you want to get that.
Protect yourself and your family.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we do have our first caller on the line, so let's get right to it. I believe we have Melissa on the line. Melissa, good morning. What's your question for the fellas?
Hi there, good morning. I wanted to know if I was riding my bike on a public road, and if I get in an accident, who is responsible for my injuries?
Good question, Melissa.
You want me to take that one?
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you're riding your bike and you're hurt by somebody on a public road, it's just like as if you were in a car wreck. The automobile liability insurance will cover your damages on the bike. Also, what you probably don't know about that is that your uninsured motorist will cover you while you're riding your bike. Because you had an incident with an automobile, your uninsured motorist also covers you on your bicycle.
It does. So one of the things, and I saw this happen Saturday morning. I was on the way to eat breakfast, and there was a cyclist and another motorist between me and the cyclist had passed by. Didn't leave 3 feet. Cyclist was a little upset. So if you, just as a general rule, bicyclists are entitled to 3 feet of extra width beside the bicycle. So if you're passing a bike, you want to make sure that you give them wide berth. We have represented a number of folks involving cycling injuries. My advice to cyclists is wear bright colors. Look for things that have retro reflectivity. That's that tape that glows when the lights hit it.
Sure.
Because statistics show that motorists are not looking for cyclists. They're looking for other four-wheeled vehicles. They're not even looking for motorcycles. And so whatever you can do to draw attention to yourself, make certain that you do. Again, it's like uninsured motorist protection. What can you do to protect yourself? But a cyclist struck on the road is entitled to all the rights. You also need to follow the rules of the road, because bicycles are regarded as vehicles under Louisiana statutory law.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, you got to signal, you got to
Yeah.
stop, you can't blow through the stop sign. Yeah.
Wow, how about that? Hey, Melissa, great question. We really
Thank you,
appreciate
Melissa.
that. Hopefully we got the answer you were looking for there. Now, Melissa brought up a good point, too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. And just a quick reminder, too, 318-219-4569. The numbers, we officially open up those phone lines right now, so give us a call if you have a question for William or Marshall as we dive into this. Now, yeah, fellas, she touched on a good point there. We focus a lot on car insurance, the vehicles, the trucks, things like that, but you guys handle cases specifically like with a bike, or it doesn't always have to involve a motor vehicle for you guys to look into this case. Tell us kind of some of the other things that you guys, instances that you guys will tackle that doesn't necessarily involve motor vehicles.
Well, we do slip and fall and trip and fall, premises liability cases. Those are actually some of the most difficult cases. We're very selective because not everything that causes somebody to slip or trip is going to be regarded as something for which the person is liable. It's got to be not just a hazardous condition, but an unreasonably dangerous or hazardous condition. And in addition to that, merchants kind of get a little bit of protection here. The deck is not stacked against them like it once was. Now the deck's actually stacked for them. You have to prove that somebody knew or should have known that that condition was present, and that they had time to clean it up before this person fell. So slip and falls and trip and falls. And then, gosh, what else do we do, Marshall?
Well, I mean, I think where it really breaks down is in the type of injuries.
Right.
We represent clients anywhere from soft tissue type injuries, to neck and back injuries that require surgery,
injuries.
all the way to, unfortunately, wrongful death claims. And we see some of the toughest things that you could ever imagine. And I know y'all have touched on it recently, talking about distracted driving.
Yes,
but,
we touched on a lot.
You have a lapse of judgment and have a wreck and change somebody's life forever, or change a family's life forever. And so we've seen some really, really serious things through the office. And I was meeting with a lady this morning, and she was wondering, how did she want to go about it? And she was worried because she was worried, well, what if I get better in a month? I don't really want to. And I said, well, what if you don't get better in a month?
Yeah,
you
right.
know? And so a lot of times we don't know. So the type of injury, varies. A majority of our business is car wrecks, trucking wrecks.
Bicycles.
And we can't talk in specifics on a show like this, but
Sure.
we've had many cases involving bicycles. And Bill's right. A lot of times it's not the cyclist's fault.
Mm-hmm.
They're on the road, and we have to remember to share the road with cyclists. But
It seems to me the bicycle cases would be some of the most, I got to say I'm not the attorney here, you guys are, but it seems like the bicycle cases would almost be the hardest to tackle sometimes because, during the news, we do a lot of cases of people leaving the scene.
Right.
And I could certainly see that. So how would you even go about that? You have bicyclists that may have been injured, somebody clipped them or knocked them off their bike, they're injured, and that driver kept going. Where do you even begin to handle that?
So, and that's a great question. Sometimes there are witnesses, and if there are, then we can chase down those leads.
we've got the real-time cameras now sometimes that pick up,
Right.
record some of these incidents that we've been able to get video.
I told them about like the ring camera
yeah.
that we had in Long
But
Lake.
I hate to go back to uninsured motorists,
Sure.
but that's all, when you cannot find the driver or you can't find out who caused the wreck. uninsured motorist is also an avenue for recovery. And I think it's important to note, too, you have to be careful that you have uninsured motorists, not uninsured motorist economic only, because that economic only really limits your ability to recover, because it won't pay for pain and suffering.
Yeah.
It only pays
lost
for
wages.
or lost wages, or
Wow.
there's a whole host of things. So be careful too when you talk to your agent. You want to make sure it's uninsured motorist, not uninsured motorist economic only.
And the cost difference is fairly small between the two, and the benefit is huge. But you were talking about bicycle cases. The biggest issue we face in bicycle cases is an issue called conspicuity, and that is how conspicuous you were. There are actually experts who will testify. The defense has called them. We had a gentleman who was injured at 12:07. I remember, because the sun was at its zenith, the highest point in the day, on Highway 1. And he was hunched over his handlebars. He had on black pants, and his tire was black, and his I can't remember what color his vehicle was. And they said he actually did not have enough conspicuity to make himself obvious to the driver, who was shuffling with papers in his vehicle and hit our client on the shoulder of the road. And we were able to show that it was the shoulder of the road based on tire yaw marks. So tires will leave marks. It's like CSI.
Sure.
They leave different marks for different type of action. And so we were able to prove that. But I'm going to tell you, I was deposing the expert, and when he told me that he couldn't see it, I just said, so you're suggesting that he was invisible? Well, he wasn't. You couldn't see him.
Yeah.
That
Wasn't
didn't work.
visible
Let me
enough.
just say this.
Yeah.
That was not a successful defense.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. But that does bring it back to wear bright colors, and if you're hunched over the wheels, if you're a real cyclist, so you're going to be hunched over the wheels, what the approaching drivers see is your black trousers and the struts on your vehicle and the black tire. There's nothing there that's retroreflective. There's no lights. And so again, best thing you can do, protect yourself.
Yeah. Not to make it all about bicycles, I find it fascinating. This is the first time I've ever heard that in Louisiana it is considered a motor vehicle. So also talk about the road conditions. I know certainly there are roads where there's a sidewalk, or roads where there'll be a bike lane, but what happens on some of those backcountry Caddo Parish roads where there is no bike lane?
Well, that's where this happens.
Yeah.
That's where this happens. There's a big riding loop south of town. A lot of the cyclists like to use it. And the problem is, if drivers do not slow down when they see cyclists, if they don't give 3 feet, then these things happen. And again, it all comes back to don't drive distracted.
Well, follow
Yeah.
the rules of the road, too.
Follow the rules.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so cyclists actually are not permitted to ride on the shoulder, because that's an emergency place. So just like a car,
Wow.
you can't ride on the shoulder. You're supposed to ride in the road. You're supposed to ride with traffic. Can't ride on the sidewalk. And some of this is a little counterintuitive. When you're coming up over a hill, you would want to think you would be able to see folks coming.
Sure.
But that's not the rules of the road. So it's up to us as drivers of motor vehicles to be aware, not just of cyclists, but other vehicles, motorcyclists. whatever.
Motorcycles.
So I can think of some times that I may have been driving, get behind a motorcyclist, and get out of the road. But they're actually obeying the law.
They're obeying the law.
So, wow, boy, that is
Gotta
that is
share the road.
fascinating. Yes. One thing that I find fascinating when it comes to dealing with whether it be a vehicle accident or something with motorcycle or bicycle is apologizing when you're at the scene is something that we've talked about before. But I think it's important to note, because if I'm in an accident, thinking about who's at fault, all that is going to probably be the last thing on my mind. I want to make sure that that other person is okay. Now, others may go a little different route, but saying you're sorry, or can you guys add some kind of clarify why that is not a good thing to say, especially in those moments following an accident?
I mean, I think it's better to check on someone and see if they're okay, and ask about somebody's well-being than to talk about fault or talk about being sorry, because it can be used against you. A lot of times you'll see that they'll tell the officer, well, they told me they're sorry,
And that happens,
that happens.
probably a lot.
Yes.
He said he was sorry,
He said
so
was
he did
sorry.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is a natural thing for us to do, especially when we've been through an experience, an unexpected incident like that. You know, to want to make it right in
Yeah.
a way. But I think the best case, or the best thing to do in those situations is just to check on everybody's well-being, make sure everybody's okay, and call the authorities and let them handle the investigation.
Is it a deal buster if you accidentally say, I'm sorry?
it
Does
is
the
not.
whole case go out the window?
No, it is not.
Okay.
It is not.
But just try not to say it. Is what you're saying.
You know, it's natural.
Yeah,
It's
see, that's what I'm
Just
saying.
natural.
Yes,
But as
yes,
Marshall
yes.
said, checking on well-being actually solves the problem.
problem.
Okay.
Regardless of who's at fault, let's get the authorities there. If somebody needs an ambulance, if somebody needs medical
Yeah.
attention, take care of that. You don't have to lose your humanity, even though the other
Right.
person is at fault.
And that's kind of, what I was
Yeah.
alluding to. So,
Yeah.
all right, great. Well, we do have our next caller on the line. Valerie, good afternoon. What's your question for William and Marshall?
My question is, if there's debris, on the road, like, the interstate, sometimes there's debris and you don't see it quick enough to, to correct, to get away from it, and it damages your car. How would you handle that? Like, how would you take care of getting your car fixed and, someone paying for that other than your insurance?
Well, there are two ways about it. One is if you have comprehensive coverage on your vehicle, then it'll cover without regard to fault. Otherwise, you're going to have some way of being able to identify where that debris came from. Frequently, there's going to be a witness who calls 911 when that tire blows apart. Or we've had actually people coming from a scrapyard and a huge piece of metal flew across the road and struck our client's car. And so you can check 911 tapes. You can find out if anybody, when they reported it, what they reported, whether or not they got a tag from the vehicle. It's amazing how many people,
Right.
once something like that happens, will report all the information they have, and then it's available for under a Freedom of Information Act public record request.
And if someone leaves debris or something falls off of a vehicle while you're driving, of course, they're responsible for that damage.
They are.
The hard part is trying to figure out who left the debris. And
Right.
so that's when you just have to investigate and try to find. The other thing about the insurance company too, if you have comprehensive and collision, they'll pay for your damages and take care of your loss. And then they have what's called a subrogation right. So they can go after whoever left the debris or whoever caused the property damage to recover the money.
Great question.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so that way then the insurance company most likely will investigate, and so I really won't have to try to figure it out myself. I can just make
Right.
the claim, and then they'll investigate from there.
Right. You're going to have to pay your deductible, but part of the subrogation claim is in the event they're able to track down where the debris came from, in the process of collecting the money they paid to fix your car, they're also going to recover your deductible. And there's an obligation that they can't put themselves ahead of you. So if they only get the deductible back, then you survive that. But usually it's been reported. Sometimes the police, if you contact the police and report that there was debris on the roadway, sometimes they can do some quick questioning as to when was it reported, did anybody get a tag. So that's another way to do it, is to go ahead and report that debris. First of all, so the next person won't hit it, and then secondly, to see if there's information that can be that's available that can help you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah,
bet.
great question there. And I think that's important because if anybody's driven over Cross Lake, you can encounter some things
And
that can
that's the
certainly.
I drove
frustrating
over Cross
thing.
Lake
Yes.
this weekend, and there's a car that was parked there for 2 or 3 days. I
Yeah,
think.
car, box springs, you name it, everything.
Everything.
But yeah, that's important too. And while we're on the topic of debris in the roadway, one of the things we talked recently with Trooper Thomas is you not going into the roadway to remove that. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Just
Absolutely not.
let
We've
your
actually
vehicle.
had
We
a
can
number
fix your
of
vehicle.
cases where that happened.
Yeah.
Our clients, being good Samaritans,
Sure.
are going out to help, even pushing vehicles out of the roadway on the interstate. If traffic has not stopped, you are just placing yourself
Yeah.
at absolute risk. I'm not suggesting that you don't go help people, but I'm suggesting that you use some real discretion. I mean, catastrophic injuries,
wrongful death.
wrongful
claims.
death,
Yeah.
because somebody tried to go help.
Yeah.
In one case, I think they were trying to help children. Now, I probably would have done the same thing, but you know, people ended up dying as a result of it.
Yeah, and that's what we don't want. We want people to stay safe,
Yeah.
and that's what these guys are here for, to get you that money back.
So the better thing you can do is put your hazard lights on, call 911 so that somebody can get out there to remove the debris,
Yeah.
or help with the stalled car, or whatever.
Yeah, and get your vehicle
Yeah.
out of the way as much
Report
as
it
you
and let the
possibly can.
authorities take care of
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. I'm glad you guys touched on that. Thanks. I'm going to go a little off script and ask you this question. What about if you hit an animal and you may be injured, or your vehicle is...
The bovine and the
Yeah.
equine cases.
You guys,
So
you know,
there's an
Or the
open
hitting up
range.
Bambi,
Unless
getting a
there's a
lawsuit
deer.
against Bambi.
Yeah, there's an open range where people don't have liability if the cows get out on the road.
Mm-hmm.
But there are duties. You've got a duty to keep your fences. Louisiana used to have strict liability. When I started practicing law, a cow case was pretty easy. You hit the cow, you ran the tags, farmer's responsible. There is now negligence. You have to show that the farmer failed to keep up his fences, or that they knew that their cows were out and failed to go round them up in a timely manner.
Yeah. It happens more
heard-
times than I mean.
it happens.
Yeah,
We-
it
I mean,
happens.
it happens.
It happens.
It happens,
Sure,
but
maybe not a
those
whole
are
lot.
very difficult because
Sure.
seldom are you able to show when the fence was torn down. Cows from time to time will tear down fences. They can jump.
And
Yeah.
in fairness,
Who
I
knew?
mean, I've seen these cases, and it's, I mean, I guess it shouldn't shock me, but there's some bad property damage from
A deer.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
from those impacts. I mean, really
Sure.
bad. So,
Deer can really mess up your
Yes.
car.
So,
I know people that have been injured because of them. Absolutely.
1,000 years ago, somebody sued the state of Louisiana for a deer case
Wow.
because the person argued that the state owned the wildlife.
Oh, jeez.
It was unsuccessful.
Yeah,
it was
that's a stretch.
unsuccessful.
It
but,
should have been. That's
um,
good.
But yeah, your only defense against the deer is don't be
Yes.
distracted.
Yes. Well, hey, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the importance of documentation, whatever situation you find yourself in. Marshall, if you want to tackle this one, talk about how important it is for people to start on their case as soon as it happens.
Yeah, immediately. I mean, obviously, you need to check on your well-being and take care of yourself first. But if you can, you need to get all the information you can about insurance, get the crash report number, get photographs of the vehicle, find out all the information you can, and then you need to talk to somebody as soon as possible to find out what your rights are and how to make your claim.
When do people reach out to you guys at Rice and Kendig?
Well, when they do, we respond quickly.
Sure.
Because we know that time is of the essence. You know, we have an intake department, and their sole job is to talk to new people, trying to immediately start solving problems. The biggest problem we find is, and I think we touched on this a few weeks ago, is if the car is totaled, how, especially for families that are dependent on one car, how are they able to, you know, get around? Sometimes insurance companies are difficult to get through all their bureaucracy, and you know, we try to cut through that. But if not, we have resources so that we can help people, especially with those immediate problems: transportation and medical treatment. And that's what we do as a priority.
Yes, and getting the ball rolling. And I think that's imperative for what you guys do, is cutting through that red tape, getting people the answers in the right order. Because if
Yeah.
something gets taken out in the wrong time, in the wrong order, it can be detrimental to their case and getting them some money back, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you guys taking some clients right now?
We are.
All right.
We are, but I would also be remiss if I didn't say hello to Liam, Niall, and Carson, my grandsons who are at my house right now. But yes,
they're watching
we are,
Granddad.
we are open. We also have a service after hours, so we can take your call 24 hours a day.
Fantastic.
We also have Spanish speaking employees available if that's a need that you have.
Fantastic. Hablo Espanol. Where can people find you? Where can they call you?
We're right down the street.
Right down the street. Yeah, I love that. New location.
Yeah, 912
Yeah.
Kings Highway, 318-222-2772.
Fantastic. I tell you, these guys are on it, and they will get you the answers you need. Well, thank you, fellas. Marshall, William, great job, fellas. Rice and Kendig, personal injury attorneys. And that was Legal Line.